Welcome to Not Your Average Neighbor, the podcast celebrating inspiring individuals and the amazing work they do in our community. I'm Ann Roshar, your host, inviting you to join me as we shine a light on stories of resilience, connection, and good news. Let's build a neighborhood that uplifts and inspires, one story at a time. Hey neighbors, it's Ann Roshar, hostess with the mostest of Not Your Average Neighbor podcast. And I just would like to say welcome. And I'm so glad you stopped by the neighborhood today. We have another incredible community member right here in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, that I want to share with you. Before that, I would just up to over 500,000 views on TikTok for my silly sunscreen video. And shout out if you found me from that silly video. It's been a lot of fun to watch all of the comments and just the pure laughter that I can feel from all of the comments of the people enjoying our misfortune of getting a drive-by sunscreen. So shout out to all the great comments, the hilarity, and the Go Hawks. Thank you so much. And welcome to my neighborhood if you haven't been here before. So today I would like to introduce you to a friend of mine whom I've actually worked with. And she holds a very special place in my heart because she actually did my father's funeral. Her name is Amy Hart, and she is a funeral director here in Cedar Rapids at Murdoch Funeral Homes, and she is a celebrant officiant. She might have to correct me on that, as well as their community outreach, like spokesperson that goes around and talk to people about a variety of different subjects. So we're going to welcome to the stage Amy Hart.
Hi, Ann. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that I didn't give you a lot of time to prep, but I also sometimes feel like it's better that way.
We'll go with it. It'll be great.
Yeah, yes, it will be great because you're great. And firstly, like I said, you know you have a very special place in my heart because you just did a wonderful job. My father passed away January 2025, and I didn't know who I was going to have. And I knew that you had done these before, and you just did it out of the park. And it was freezing cold, and we were in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. And I'm more grateful to you and just love it every time I get to see you. So thank you again for that. You just have such a gift when it comes to that. You correct me. It's celebrant officiant.
The term that I'm trained under is called certified celebrant. So I was trained
certified celebrant. Okay.
Yep. 2015 is when I got my training from the Insight Institute is who certifies celebrants. And Glenda Stansberry I just got to hear her speak 2 weeks ago at the Iowa Funeral Directors Convention. And it was just like running into an old friend, over 10 years later, being able to see her and tell her how much of an impact that training has had on my work and in our community, I think. So
that's fantastic. And neighbors, I know this isn't a topic that we typically talk about, but listen, we have all lost someone, whether it be a parent, a sibling, an aunt and uncle, grandma, a child, a pet, all lost someone because that is a part of life. And I just wanted to give us a little bit of permission and a little bit of time to talk about grieving and grief and how there's no timeline on it. There's no, everyone grieves in their own way, but also like how you as a good person, a good neighbor to your family can maybe pre-plan these events that are going to happen at some point in life. So that's why we have Amy on here today, because although it's a heavy topic, it's also needed. It's also necessary. And we we just need to make sure that we're all doing our best, and we just need to make sure that when people are grieving, it may not be a quick path. Like I told you, Amy, I kind of like go, okay, it's funeral. I get my bereavement time. I get my 3 days, and then I'm going to move past that. And that's not how it is for everyone. So, you went to the Iowa Funeral Conference a couple weeks ago. You mentioned, so let's learn about that experience. I heard it was a lot of fun from
It
our
was a
friend
lot of fun. Yeah.
Matthew.
Yes. It was equal parts fun and education, I would say. Maybe a little more education than fun. Well, it depends on who you ask, maybe. But
I mean, it's a part of the journey, right? You go to a
yeah,
conference, you have to mix in some fun with a lot of learning.
yeah.
That's
It
for
it
sure.
it was really fantastic. The caliber of educators that we got to hear speak on a variety of different topics, all in the orbit of funeral service. It was just really refreshing. It's awesome to come back from an experience like that, especially when you've been able to go with coworkers who are in your same building, in your same firm, and come back re-energized with like even more of a fire and a passion for what we do. And so we're really excited to start implementing some of what we learned out at the convention here at the funeral homes.
Yeah, so you have many jobs, but your main job right now is community outreach. So let's talk about what that looks like. Just a little side note, I have served as a hostess for the um, Murdoch Funeral Homes, and quite honestly, it kind of like it was a meant to be kind of. My grandmother, my mother, my sister, all my father, all of my family has been um, Murdoch has been a part of all of those. And so when Matthew and I met, Matthew Salger, our friend, met, and I was a little slow during the real estate time, and he's like, "Do you want to be a hostess?" I was like, "Yes, sure," because I feel like that was just a perfect vibe. So I know that you were just kind of starting a new like grief group or reigniting this group. So kind of
Right.
tell us about what that looks like.
So when I transitioned into this more community facing role several years ago, one of wish list items was to be able to really bolster our aftercare or our continuing care programming. To me, as on the funeral director side of things, I always kind of cringed when we would be saying goodbye to a family at the end of a graveside ceremony or at the end of a cremation service and saying, okay, call me if you need anything. And knowing realistically and practically, I didn't have much to offer in the way of continuing care at that time, other than being able to maybe help them with more thank you cards and more death certificates. And so this community outreach and aftercare programming in my heart really stems from that. And from that, we've been able to build a program that's called Journeys, and we meet once a month at our Murdoch Glenwood location here in Cedar Rapids. We meet on a Monday at 2:30, and I call it a bereavement social group. And especially as we're talking about grief topics, I want to be really clear. I'm not a grief expert.
No.
I'm not a
Sure,
therapist.
sure. But right,
I,
right, right.
I come to you as a person who happens to work with grieving people every day. And I come to you as a
Absolutely.
person who has been on my own grief journeys and several different kind of seasons of my life. So,
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I wanted to say that as well. I know that I just feel like your experience and being a funeral director, as well as this aftercare, as well as being in the community, it really just broadens your knowledge kind of how what grief care looks like.
right. Yeah.
So any of this is not by, we're not professionals. We're just talking as friends,
Right.
just talking about a sensitive subject that
Yeah.
we both have experience in.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Thanks for that. And so to that point with journeys, I really wanted it to be more social focused because that's where I feel my strengths lie, is bringing people together, hosting events, and knowing that I have limitations as a professional. I thought I know plenty of professionals who work in some aspect for caring for people in really unique ways. So that group, every month we try to feature somebody else in our community who has some kind of a touch point for people who are on a grief journey. So for example, we've got a great relationship with a licensed family and marriage therapist, Dr. Shoshana Guerrero. She comes to us at least twice a year to lead workshops in like practical grief coping skills. And I always invite her around like October, November time to host a workshop about grieving as the holiday season starts to inch into our lives sooner and sooner every year, it feels like. But we've also just this month we had a grief yoga, so a chair yoga experience by a certified yoga practitioner. We've had mindfulness and meditation experiences. We've had dietitians come in to talk to us about how important simple nutrition is when you're on a grief journey. We've had a chef come in and lead us into like a cooking for one class for people who are recently widowed or have lost a partner or other family member in their home that they typically cared for. And now how do we grocery shop or even cook for one person in our household? That looks a lot different for people. Yet upcoming this year, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I was going to ask, didn't you have like a Galentine's Day?
Yeah, so that's one of our yearly events. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so sweet. I wish I could have made it. I was so bummed that I didn't.
We do that for folks who have lost their spouse or partner. That's one of our annual events we started doing as part of the ongoing care that we offer, just offering a place to go on Valentine's Day for folks who are missing that special person. We've done trivia in the past for entertainment. This year, I tried my hand at calling bingo, which I was like, please forgive me. I'm probably not a good bingo caller. And they're like, you're doing great. So they were very encouraging.
I just did bingo calling for like maybe the second time at this plant bingo out in Swisher. And I was like, oh, I'll have fun. And then I was like, oh, no, no, no. They are very serious about bingo.
Oh, yeah.
They only want you to say the number.
Yes. I've been to bingo. I spent out at Loud Park in Marion and everybody's like, shh, you can't talk.
Yeah.
But this was a lot more lighthearted than that. So I had a lot of fun.
That's good. That's good.
I was going to say one of our other continuing events that we host now annually is also a holiday remembrance ceremony leading up to the holiday season, inviting every single family that we serve to come, and there's a candle lighting ceremony, and either me or our other celebrant on staff, Suzanne Siegel, will come and offer a brief service, but something that acknowledges the different types of loss that we might be experiencing together in that room, and just kind of making space for those moments to be in community together and have that feeling of gathering. So I think that
right. No, that is so important, especially as traditional, I don't know if I'm going to say it correctly, but traditional funerals, I feel like they're changing a little bit, like a lot more celebration of life instead of, I just remember my grandfather back in the 1900s, like that was, you saw the body, you went to church, you had lunch, you left. But it's so important to encompass all faiths, all people who need this community, may not have a religious community.
Yeah, agree 100%. And especially as somebody who gets out and does community education a lot, I really try to emphasize the fact that funerals today do not look like what they did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, heck, even 5 years ago. They look a lot different. I mean, post-pandemic. There are a lot of changing traditions, like you mentioned. And something that I encourage people to think about as they're maybe making plans ahead of time is make new traditions, make something that's more right for your family. It might not look like having a service in a place of worship. It might look like having, a party, a goodbye party with appetizers and drinks and people raising a toast in your name. I've helped families who were interested in planning ahead. They were like, my person loves karaoke. Can we do karaoke night at your funeral home? It's like, you bet we can. Like, let's make it happen. If that's what makes sense for you, if that's what's meaningful for you and how you gather, then it's worth doing.
I think so, absolutely. And we have to take away the mindset that it has to be done one specific way, right?
Agree. Yeah, I totally agree.
Because there's so many different routes. And, a part of why I wanted to do this is a good friend of mine that you participated in last year, her celebration. We all were requested or asked to wear bright colors, and we shared stories, and it was like, it was so sad, but it was so her. And so I guess this is your permission. If you are thinking about it, make sure that you're writing these things down and telling your people, like, they had Bravo related items during the celebration last year, and it was just like, yes, please. I was all in, and I love that we're have the ability to do that. It doesn't, because special lives deserve to be celebrated and remembered, and all of that. So um I wonder, Amy, when I think about you and how eloquently you speak, is this something that always came easy to you to be able? I know you were properly trained, but like, were you a writer? Like, you just present the most special services, and so I want to learn a little bit about that.
Sure. So before I was ever in funeral service, in another lifetime, I had dreams of academia. So I have a degree in history and art history. And in my college years, I was really heavily involved in my campus theater group. So performing on and behind the stage was something that consumed a lot of my time. I'm not a very good actor, but I loved being in the singing productions that we did. So our musicals and our cabaret for charity that we would put on. So St. John's University, shout out. And then after college, that was around the time of the recession. And, I'm entering my senior year at the university, and all of my roommates and friends were taking their GREs and they're going on to grad school. And I really, really, really wanted to do that too. But I also knew that I really, really, really didn't want to live with my parents when I got back home. So I was like, my passion for funeral service, I should kind of backtrack a little bit. I went into college undecided at the time. I only applied to 2 universities. Both offered bachelor's programs in some variety of mortuary science, because since about age 12, I knew that I wanted to work in funeral service. I had done a couple job shadows at area funeral homes in the Chicago suburbs where I lived. I was 100% one-track mindedly going to be going to Southern Illinois University at Carbondale because they had a bachelor's program in mortuary science and funeral service. And then randomly in the mail one day, I got an invitation to apply at St. John's. I was like, okay. I looked them up and I noticed they had a bachelor's program in mortuary management. So I was like, all right, let me entertain this idea. I was fortunate enough to get a full academic scholarship from St. John's to go to college. And so you can't pass that in New York City. Like it was kind of the opportunity of a lifetime. So that's where I went. And when I finally got there, I'm like, I'm in New York City. I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to be pre-med. I'm going to be audiology major. I'm going to be pre-law. I took a history class my second semester of my freshman year, and that was it. I was like, this is for me. And so I did a lot of undergraduate research, presented at a lot of conferences, which I think also helped getting comfortable with public speaking. And then after after college, mortuary school, and then I moved to Washington, Iowa, where I got my first big girl job in a funeral home. So I guess I was a little bit comfortable with public speaking, but I wasn't necessarily a writer in like telling stories like I feel like I get to do now. It was a lot more history based, art based. But I feel like maybe what makes my take on being a celebrant a little more unique is that I do a lot of research using kind of my historical background. I do deep dives into newspaper archives to learn more about the person that I'm celebrating before I even get to meet with the family. So I at least feel like I get to know them a little bit before I sit down and learn about them more from the memories of their family. But I think that helps a lot in the way that I organize and present the services. And then the other thing is to just practice a lot. A lot. And even now, I mean, 10 plus years, 11 years since being trained for celebrant work, I still probably each family that I'm privileged to help in that capacity, it's between 12 and 20 hours of work time to get from the moment I sit down with the family to the moment that I shake their hands at the end of the ceremony. So it's a lot of just getting in the zone. You know, did you ever see the movie Soul, the Disney Pixar movie?
I don't know if I have.
Well, it's kind of germane to what we're talking about today too. But there's just this awesome depiction of when the main character, he's doing what he loves the most. It's his passion, and just the colors and everything shift to this purple, pink, and he's just getting lost in time and space. And that's kind of how I feel I get when I start to write these people's stories. It feels like I'm really lucky that I get to be a storyteller.
Well, I feel like you were chosen because you just have such a beautiful way of remembering these people, these loved ones, and you just listen. I think you do a really good job of listening, and I just admire all of your hard work. And that is a lot of work. I mean, what do you do when you're done with that? Do you go drink a glass of wine or do you go take a nap? I mean,
You know, it depends on the day.
yeah,
But it is every time that I finish, I just kind of, you feel like there's something gone. It's like I just poured a lot of myself into this, and I just hope that it's received positively or meaningfully by the people who it was meant for, that they walk away saying, wow, that was her, or that was him, or wow, I didn't even realize that that was part of their life history. I'm so, like, I learned something new about this person today that I wouldn't have otherwise known. And I think that those are the coolest comments that I receive from families, and even friends of friends who happen to be at the service, who will come and just remark about, wow, that was so fitting for them. And if those are the kind of comments that we're receiving afterwards, then I know that we're doing something right and something healing. And
absolutely.
I think, you know, we were talking about traditions, old and new, and I think, like I alluded to earlier, people maybe shy away from the word funeral nowadays because they're like, I don't want a funeral like that.
Right.
And I think what that is something that's a little more not as personalized. And I think that we have a real opportunity to reach people in a more meaningful way that helps them on their grief journey when we do something that offers them more substance, something that's real. And so that's really what I strive for.
Beautifully said again, of course. So let's go back to the community outreach. Like we both said, you're not a grief counselor or anything, but you certainly are there to be a friendly face to them, especially when they first walk in, because they've probably seen you or had you speak for their loved one. So, you know, like, I'm not sure what my question is exactly, other than what can you give people like first timers coming to something like this where it is not that it is completely out of their comfort zone, but they need it, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. And it's daunting to try anything new, right? Let alone when you're somebody who is really tender in that moment, and to allow yourself to be so vulnerable that you're going to potentially enter a room of complete strangers. And then what? I think a lot of people have a fear of coming to a grief group or something like Journeys. They worry that the spotlight's going to be on me. This is going to be like everybody sitting in a circle and sharing, and kind of, am I going to feel overwhelmed by somebody else's grief by being in a place like this? I'm here to just kind of protect my own grief, or to find a new way to express myself. And again, we were very conscientious about modeling Journeys not on that kind of group therapy, sit in a circle setting, again, because I didn't feel qualified to lead a group like that. But the goal for our group is people who attend to know that, hey, we're experiencing new things together. We're learning new things together. And you're just doing that in a room where you know that the person next to you has a loss on their heart too. And if they stay later and they socialize and they share more of their story, I think that's amazing. I think that I've seen people exchanging phone numbers, email addresses. Kind of, we carve out time for socialization after our presenters are over with. But others come for the instructional content, the presenter content, and that's as much as they can or will engage, and that's okay too. Like you said earlier, there's no prescription for how grief looks. It's different for every person. It's different moment to moment in an individual person. And so it's just knowing how to kind of steel yourself for those encounters. And I think that's what we're trying to offer, is kind of this wheels on the spoke of grief care, this continuum of, hey, maybe it's the evening time when your grief hits you the hardest. Here's a journaling workshop that we have for when you can really just introspect, have those thoughts, write them down. And maybe that's a way that you can feel close to your person, or at least just express yourself and how you're feeling. Maybe for you, it's at dinner time because it's overwhelming to try to figure out how to just cook for one person. And again, let's talk about how do we prepare ourselves for that, and how can we make that different for you? We can't promise it's going to be better, but we can give you the tool to make it a little bit different, so that maybe the next time it's not as hard on your heart.
Or maybe it's something they can even look forward to. Still sharing their life with their loved one at the end of the night, with a journal. I mean, I love that you have an activity or a presenter so that it does make it less, hi, my name is Anne and I lost my dad.
Correct.
Because that is so sterile and not comfortable for anyone. Believe it or not, even me, I wouldn't be able to go in a room. I'd probably just start bawling as soon as I got in the room if it was like that. But knowing that there is this interwoven, there's activities and the pressure, it's not all about you. And hey, if you want to share, we're here too.
Yeah.
So I love that so much. And it's so important. And I feel like it's really a unique community that you are creating, which, we all need, again, just to have that permission, because, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, or maybe not we, but I'm thinking I put a lot of pressure on myself to, like I said, these are the steps that I've learned. We do this, then we go to the funeral home, then we go to the funeral, then we have lunch, and then we do thank you cards. I'm not always the best at thank you cards, and not because I don't appreciate everyone, just saying, I just am bad at thank you cards. And then we go back to work, and there's so much more in between. And just, asking the person who, with their loss specifically, how do you want me to help you remember your loved one? I think that's really important. Asking them, do you want us to talk about your loved one? Or do you want us to just not say anything until you say something? all of those parameters are gentle, yet because there's so much emotion in it as well, right? Like,
Yes, absolutely. And I think when it comes to talking about grief and how we as a community of people care for grieving people in our lives, I think that we don't always know the right thing to do or say. And so I
mhm,
think your point about have that conversation, ask for their permission to engage with them in a way that's comfortable for them. There's a fantastic resource called the Widowed Parent Project. You can look it up online. And I've used this at Journeys before, and I've used this for helping families who come to me with questions. But the author of that blog sphere and website has this great chart of, hey, I'm a support person for a grieving individual. You know, you have those well-meaning folks who come up to you as maybe I'm the grieving person. They say, well, let me know if you need anything. Well, you've got a million things in your mind, and you're not going to call up Susie J and say, Susie, you know what? Could you come and take out my trash this week? Like, even though you might need that, you can't, I mean, it's kind of this pride thing. It's this, we have all of this, I can tough it alone ingrained into us in a certain cultural way, right? But if we as the community surrounding the grieving person, rather than asking them, you let me know, let me put it in your court.
right,
No, I'm putting myself into your court. I'm saying, okay, next Tuesday, I'm taking your kids out for dinner. Go ahead and do something for yourself. Or, you know what, I'm going to stop by this week, or I'm running to Sam's Club already. Let me pick you up some bottled water and haul it into the house for you. You offer those concrete ways rather than asking them to reach out and let you know how you can help them, because you're never going to hear from them. But I
you're never going to hear from them.
that if you put yourself out there and put yourself in their court, they will never, ever forget how kind you were to them and how much that meant to them in that moment. Honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking, you know, my friend, she was the one that really put that in my mind that I should start asking the person who has lost someone how they want to move forward.
Right.
And I think it's very important, especially if you are, that this is breaking their hearts. Like, okay, when you're ready, can you tell me how you would like to move, talk about Frank, talk about whoever that you are missing or want to remember, because giving them that permission, to think about that, because I think that we also don't want to bring it up and make someone sad and all of that stuff. So thinking about how that will be received, if it's a person that is, open to that, right? Like, you're not trying to open wounds at all. But I really appreciated when she was like, listen up, I want to talk. I want people to tell me things. I want stories. I just really appreciated that, because I don't think I've ever given anyone that, you know? And I send my friends condolences and thoughts and prayers and all of that. But like, really making an impact into someone's life could be asking how they want to remember them.
I agree 100%. I think that's so intuitive and well thought out. I
Yeah.
want to just plug another. I have no affiliation with any of these resources that I'm mentioning. They're just things that I've come across that I find really valuable. There's an amazing documentary that you can find online. It's called Speaking Grief. And I find that the beginning of the documentary is incredibly impactful because it shows different people, different ages of different ethnicities, walks of life, just a huge diversity of humanity walking busy city streets. And each of them have on this t-shirt, and there's a label on the front, and maybe it says brother or sister or father or mother, partner, and them, you can see that they feel very isolated because this is representing the person that they're grieving is who, and they feel very isolated in those moments because people are, kind of looking at them differently because they know. Or I think one of the most moving parts, or the one that really struck me and made me question my own reactions to how I deal with grieving people, is there's two women who are meeting for lunch, and the one woman unzips her jacket, and it shows like an infant on her shirt is who her loss is, and then noticing the way that her lunch companion's eyes glance to her shirt, she knows it's not safe for me to share my feelings about this. She zips her jacket back up because she doesn't feel safe enough to talk about it, or it doesn't feel like a welcoming enough. And so I think when you put yourself in the position to ask people how they feel comfortable in remembering their person or talking about their person, I think that helps disrupt this kind of cycle of, people are looking at me differently because they know I have a loss. And I kind of want to talk about it, but I don't know if I can because I might cry. And if I cry, they're going to know that I'm sad and I'm not over it, but I'm not over it. Don't I want them to know that I'm not over it? But again, moment to moment, your feelings about talking about it, they might change too. And that's okay. If you get into a conversation as a grieving person and you say, okay, I think that I'm going to have to call this like my max today, set that boundary. And if you have to say, I want to keep talking about this, but I can't right now, like it's just not in me, I'd love to revisit this again. It doesn't mean that once the door's open, it always has to be open. You are in charge.
Right. Absolutely. Yes. I love that so much. And like I said before, this is not my typical like fun loving, high featured, but Murdoch Funeral Homes does such a beautiful job of taking care of people in pre-planning. So let's talk about that real briefly. Like, how would someone pre-plan and get and make an appointment to then after when the services are going? Murdoch is top notch with all of those things. So talk about the pre-planning.
Sure. So pre-planning, we do host a seminar monthly, March through November, typically. We just finished up our third one of this month, which is unusual, but it was very well received this month, in which we got to reach about 85 folks who were interested in how to plan ahead. And so during those seminars, we talk about different kinds of logistical concerns about the pre-planning process, to why people pre-plan in the first place, and just try to really start those conversations, which are difficult to have, of like, think about how you want to be remembered, and let's help you start to write this down. And this is why it's important to write it down. Speaking specifically for our state in Iowa, we have some pretty stringent laws about who's in charge after an individual dies. And so a big part of the pre-planning seminars that I lead is focusing on our law code, which is called Code 144C. It's the funeral rule. It's just as riveting as it sounds. But really, when it comes to funeral practitioners and how we can engage with families, this is really the blueprint that tells us who is the person who we lean on to make those decisions about cremation, burial, and how any of the ceremonies are going to be held. So a lot of our education efforts go into telling people about something called a disposition designation, a legal designee for disposition, which is a simple legal form that any funeral practitioner can help you fill out. And it allows you to name who you want to be in charge of your funeral arrangements. Specifically, you can name a backup person in case that one person can't or won't fulfill their duty at the time of your passing. And then you can answer a few other yes or no questions regarding cemetery space, pre-planning, and organ or tissue donation. And then to be considered a legal document, it just has to be notarized, signed in the presence of a notary, or signed in the presence of two uninterested witnesses who aren't named on there. So that's kind of my like soapbox comment. Like,
Well,
if
I
you
mean,
don't
but
do,
it's also
don't
important.
do
Yeah.
anything else in terms of planning ahead, consider
Do
having a
that.
date. And
Yes.
if anybody has any questions, regardless of your funeral home affiliation that you might have, family traditions wise, please use me as a resource to learning more about that. I'd be glad to help that.
And I would be, can we share your email?
Please, absolutely. I would
Okay,
love that. I would love
okay.
that. But
No,
we
I
have,
mean, those rules are there for a reason, right?
right.
And sometimes if you don't have that done, it's just going to cause one more stress for the loved ones left behind who now are trying to do their best to make sure that you are remembered properly. And yeah, and then it's just chaos and it's
It can
unnecessary
be a
if you
lot.
can do
Yeah.
it before.
I agree. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I can tell you that I have been sitting across the table from families who say, I was her POA. I'm her executor. I'm the one in charge. And the fact of the matter is, according to the law code, sometimes they're not the one in charge. And so we have to really, it can cause, like you said, a lot of stress, a lot more confusion, frustration, discontent, on down the list of not great feelings when you are just, like you said, trying to do your best to do right by your loved one. And there's these roadblocks, but we can make that path a little bit easier for our families if we just do a little bit of planning ahead. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, my mom, she had ALS and thankfully had the wherewithal to do that pre-planning and such as far as her casket and which, all of those things. And what a relief it was that I didn't have to make those decisions. Even, like it's just, you just don't want to have to do that or add that extra stress to, again, the people that are left behind grieving, because you had the ability to do it when you were
Right.
here. So it's the best gift. It's the best going away gift you can give your family, really, like as far as just reducing the chaos and the confusion and all of that, because there's so many emotions during that time. And it's just, yeah. So I love that. And when are those pre-planning classes again? You
So
said March.
they vary. Yep. So we send out invitations about the beginning of the month. Typically, they're held about the third week of the month. We kind of go between our three locations: Manchester, Cedar Rapids, and Marion. This last year, we've been trying to do much more of those offsite in a more neutral place. So going to restaurants. We did host a pie and pre-planning at the end of March at our Center Point facility. That was the first time that we'd invited some of the Center Point residents to join us there, and it was very well received, and they loved the pie. So that was
I mean, who can say no to
Who
pie?
doesn't? But we're so it changes. I usually have a plan for like 6 months at a time. So we're getting close to the end of our first 6 months of the year. We'll be looking forward to the second half of the year here soon for planning. I was going to mention, you obviously are a believer in the benefits of planning ahead, and thanks for sharing your experience with that. But I'm a type A, kind of a detail oriented person myself, and like I just turned 38. You better believe I have my plans written down too, and I made my husband write his because I feel confident I would be able to plan a very meaningful service for my husband. He, on the other hand, I live in this world every day. And so
Yeah.
we're comfortable talking about these things in my family, which I'm very grateful for. But for him, I know that walking into these doors on that day when he has to make those decisions, I don't want him to have to worry about it, first of all.
Mhm.
But I also I know I don't want him to pick the wrong flowers. Like I know what kind of flowers I like and especially what I don't like. So I'm very, very specific. And like I've got my music all picked out and I've got my readings picked out and I know who I want to officiate my service and even down to like the dress that I want to be wearing. It can be as simple as just writing a designee, simple 2-page form and say, hey, I trust you who I've designated to be in charge of my wishes. I've told you what I want. That's as good as I want to be. Or you can be a little over the top like me and write down everything.
I mean, it's like planning your party, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Party. Yeah. Well, thank you again so much for spending time with me today. I know it's beneficial. Even like I said, we don't want to talk about it, but yeah, it's so important that we talk about um, all of the things around grief. And just once again, shout out to Murdoch Funeral Home and to Amy Hart. Thank you so much for your time today. Neighbors, if you have any questions, I will be sharing the contact information for Amy and Murdoch Funeral Homes, and just reach out to them or reach out to me, and we will get you connected with someone who can help. So thanks again, Amy.
Thank you,
And
Anne.
neighbors, we will see you next time on Not Your Average Neighbor. Don't forget to like, comment, share all the things, and we will see you next week.